my people, it's me, Anja. My pronouns all she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new recent reads video. The first book on this list is called I Am Not Jessica Chen. This story is a YA contemporary following a young Asian main character who wishes that she could be like her perfect cousin after constantly being compared to her, after being rejected by every single university that she got into, specifically every single Ivy League university. And so with that, she makes a wish that she could be her cousin, and she wakes up the next day and she is her. Does that make sense? Anyway, I didn't like this book very much because it felt extremely underdeveloped, and I just wish that it had been actually from Jessica's perspective the entire time. And I think that, like, the book would have benefited from that extremely, especially when it came to, like, diving into the model minority myth. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't like this book at all. I was just way more interested in Jessica's life and her friends and her relationships with all of them than her cousins. Does that make any sense? And the romance, I didn't really care for it that much. So with that said, this book felt extremely underdeveloped, similarly to the author's previous YA contemporary, which was one of my most disappointing books last year, which is why I had very low expectations for this book in general. But honestly, anyway, I rated this book 3 stars. I wish I hadn't read it, so take that as you will. The next book on this list is called Pet. This story is a YA magical realism contemporary, and it follows a young black transgender main character who discovers that not all of the monsters in her world have been wiped from existence because a hunter comes through one of her mother's paintings and he says that he is here to kill a monster, but she used to believe that all of the monsters in her world don't exist anymore, so it contradicts everything that she's ever known. Does that make sense? I don't know if it really does or not, and honestly, I'm not even quite sure that I should even categorize this book as magical realism contemporary, because the world that this main character exists in is a world that is similar to ours, but there aren't any really, like, references to all modern day or to historical time periods of the past either. So I guess it could be categorized as, like, dystopian or utopian, but I don't know if it's supposed to be set in the future exactly either. I don't know. But anyway, this book was so good. I think the world building is excellent. I think the writing about, like, what makes somebody a monster versus a human versus other is so interesting and it's so fascinating. The descriptions are so well done. The characters are so well developed and so distinct. I loved the queer representation. I loved the disability representation. The main character is selectively non-verbal, so I really appreciated all that representation when it comes to, like, who is speaking and who is silenced. Does that make any sense? Anyway, overall, this book was really, really well done. There is a trigger warning on this book for CSA, so please, please be wary of that. But overall, I love the characters, I love the friendships, I love the plot, the world building, all of it is excellent. So anyway, overall, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Song of Us. This story is a middle-grade queer contemporary retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice, which I had to Google how to pronounce. And basically, I rated this book 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed the free-verse format. I liked the queer representation. I don't really enjoy the pacing of the romance, and one of the main characters, frankly, to me, felt more developed than the other main character. I've already forgotten their names, which goes to show how much this book is one that I will really remember or not. You know what I mean? But basically, I think that the closeted main character felt more underdeveloped than the out main character. And honestly, I have not read the original story that this book is based on, so maybe, like, that's why the pacing of the romance specifically felt off, and maybe that's why one of the characters felt more underdeveloped than the other main character. You know what I mean? But anyway, overall, I liked this book. I am still excited for the author's next book, which I think will be coming out next month, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I rated the story 3 out of 5 stars, so take that as you will. The next book on this list is called The Underwood Tapes. This story is a YA paranormal contemporary following a young main character who's in her mother's hometown, a hometown that her deceased mother left 30 years ago, and the town does not quite associate her mother and now herself with such a good image because, like, nobody leaves this small town. You know what I mean? Anyway, she's transcribing these cassette tapes and she discovers that she can hear the voice of the original person from the 90s who recorded these original cassette tapes initially, and not only that, but he can hear her as well. Does that make any sense? I don't know if it does. I've tried filming this so many times, and every time I start over because I think it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, this book was so good. First of all, I love a good storyline about, like, solving a mystery from the past, from the present. I loved the world building so much. The paranormal elements were done so well. The characters are so well developed and so distinct. I love also a story, a mystery set in a small town. I love the community. I loved her relationship with her cousin and with her new friends and her uncle and her family members, and how it all intertwined with the mystery of the past and everything. The story is so well done. The plot was so engaging and so awesome. This book overall is super underrated. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called All the Blues in the Sky. This story is a middle-grade contemporary following a young black main character who is navigating the loss of her best friend, and it's written in verse. This book is absolutely so fantastic and it's so good. I remember having really low expectations for this book prior to reading it, not based on the author's reputation or anything like that, but based on the page length that I spotted on Goodreads, just because I think it's less than 200 pages technically, and usually whenever I'm reading a shorter book, I consume it in an even shorter amount of time, just in general, because I'm a very fast reader, as we all know. So sometimes when that happens, like, the story is not as quite memorable as it could have been had it been longer and had I taken more time to read it in general. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this book was so good. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars because the story is so moving, so emotional, so well done. The characters are so well developed and so distinct. I love the friendships so much. I love the depiction of grief, especially in the group that she goes to. This book is excellent. The writing is so lyrical, so pretty, so well done. This book is excellent and so brilliant and so moving and emotional. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly recommend it. The last book on this list, and certainly not the least because I rated it 5 stars, is called This Ends in Embers. For those who don't know, this book is a YA fantasy sequel to So Let Them Burn, which is a YA Jamaican-inspired fantasy. And it follows 2 sisters, and it talks about dragons and the effects of colonialism. And like I said, it's Jamaican-inspired, and that is so telling within the world building and everything. This book is so well done, and I truly loved it so much. I loved the sisters as characters, as people. I understood their motivations, their emotions so well, every single one of them, and how they reacted to each other as well as to themselves. This book is excellent. I love the romances so much. The queer representation is so excellent. The world building is atmospheric and it makes so much sense. The plot and everything is excellent. This book is so good, and I was so emotionally invested from the beginning to the end. Everything about this book was absolutely so amazing, and it's so well written. I think this book is awesome, and honestly, I think this entire series deserves so much more hype. It deserves just as much hype as the Raybale duology, as Legendborn, as every other iconic Black YA fantasy, and YA fantasy in general. This book is excellent, and it's fantastic, and it's so good. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 5 out of 5 stars because it was perfect. So with that said, I would definitely highly recommend it. So in conclusion, today is February 8th, and my February reading month has been going well so far. I really hope that it continues to be. By the time you're watching this, I think it's the end of February or something like that. But anyway, I have to start filming videos for March soon. I was going to film a March TBR, but I don't think that I'm going to, just because, if you didn't know, my monthly TBRs are typically based around my most anticipated releases of that month, since only a third of the books that I read historically in a year are backlisted. But like, my most anticipated March 2025 new releases were already talked about in my most anticipated 2025 new releases of the entire year. So I just feel like a March TBR would be redundant, so I'm not filming one. But I will be filming one in April and May, and probably the rest of the months as well this year. I'm not completely sure, but I know for sure I will be filming one in April. So anyway, all that to say, if you enjoy this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the dog emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!